It's always so good to be here, and thank you for extending an invitation repeatedly. I guess I'm not torturing you too bad. So there are two readings for today's message. And the first is from the Christian tradition in the Gospel of John 12. In the temple, Jesus found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and the money changers seated at their table. Making a whip out of cords, he drove them all out of the temple, along with the sheep and the cattle. He also poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. He told those who were selling the doves, "Take these things out of here. Stop making my Father's house a marketplace." And then later on in the Christian Testament, the book of James, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Do they not come from the desires you have that battle within yourself? You need, but you do not have, so you kill. You covet, but you cannot get it, so you quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask. So the last in my series on singularity, after we looked at our connection to self and our connection to source, and then our connection to other humans, is a look at our connection to nature. But as you can tell by this morning's readings, since my connection to my source, it plays a pivotal role in what I speak about. The direction of our exploration of singularity is going to kind of take a bit of a detour. So I hope you will humor me and source, because I really didn't want to talk about what to me is an itchy topic, especially for us Quakers, and that is anger. But I have so felt and experienced anger in the past 6 weeks that I thought, I can't get past it. I have to climb over this hurdle with you. So you're probably wondering the same thing I was wondering when I discerned the topic. What does anger have to do with singularity? Because, Source knows I'm on this path. I'm talking about singularity. But what I deduced was that while our information and knowledge is increasing exponentially, our access to it is increasing exponentially, which is a large part of singularity. It's quite evident that our access to and our understanding of human emotion, how to process what we feel, how to feel what we feel, and what to do with it, especially the high energy emotions like anger, it is sorely lacking. And the ramped up divisiveness or divisiveness in our contemporary culture is a dominant indicator of this painful reality. We don't know what to do with how we feel. How many of us here grew up with a healthy model of anger? Nobody. Oh my gosh, I thought there'd be one Quaker who had a perfect family. No, me neither. I don't know about you, but I grew up hearing a lot of myths about anger, especially if ladies don't get angry. It's like, well, then my mama ain't a lady. But that was kind of dismissing anger that women felt. And then there was evolution is survival of the fittest. And in my book, that got translated into the meanest, biggest, baddest, whoever was excused of their anger because of the theory of evolution. And then I would hear, and y'all have to just listen to my southern accent, oh, he got his temper from his daddy. Like it was a way to blame genetics at his uncontrollable rage. It's like, oh, he can't help himself, bless his heart. So as often as anger really gets a bad rap, it's actually a natural emotion, and it really does serve a purpose. It's the way we respond to it that we learn, and that we can unlearn and relearn. We can reteach ourselves how to process and access anger. When the snack machine fails to give you your pack of nabs, what do you do? What do you do? Kick it. What else does? Beat on it.
I go up to the front desk, tell them, and get the money back.
Yep.
And
I said
they
there's
settle it with the company.
there's going to be somebody who says, "Oh, who's the vendor?" I'm going to call them and tell them their machine's not working. And then there's the person I've watched put more coins into it. And sometimes it works. Most often it doesn't. It just takes more of your money and doesn't give you your nabs, So that's a reflection on what varied ways we have of dealing with anger. I think one of the biggest challenges of keeping the Quaker peace testimony is, what do we do with our anger as Quakers, as human beings? Many friends, and I would say I'm among them, have found that the best way to deal with anger is what I call polite silence. They go, and they're seething inside. I don't know about you, Carolyn, I probably could have thrown a few chairs or a few pews, even a few benches for 4 years in quarterly meetings. But so why should we give in to anger if we want to keep a peace testimony? And if we give into it, how do we do that? What is the purpose it serves us anyway? So physiologically, talking about just in the body, anger serves as a protective barrier against what our brain perceives to be a negative stressor. And a negative stressor could be like from another painful emotion we're feeling that anger is there to defend, like guilt. Oh, I didn't do that. Mm-hmm. Or shame. Oh, yeah, I did do that. Or grief. Anger, Kubler-Ross, anger is one of the 5 aspects of grief. All of these things, even anger, is a disguise for fear. Or you could see it as a protective factor from fear. Yelling at your kid when they run across the street before you can look both ways, that's not anger. It's just a response to that fear that they're going to be hurt, or that we're going to have a loss. We yell as a response to the adrenaline shooting through our bodies that is there to induce an immediate response. Immediate action is called for. So anger can also be a response to a painful sensation. When I worked at an orthopedic practice in Greensboro, it was quite apparent that people in pain are going to respond in 2 different ways. First is tears, and second is anger. And just because they're angry at you on the phone doesn't mean they're angry at you. It means they're in pain. So it's quite natural to lash out when you're in pain. I don't know if any of you have ever petted I went to pick up my family pet when I was about 7 or 8, and she bit me. And it's like, what? She's never bitten anybody. She had a gash in her side where a dog had bitten her. I didn't know, but she bit me because she was defending herself against the painful sensation. So a third sensation that might stir anger within us is a sense of threat. If we have a feeling of being unsafe because of something going on around us, even if it's not in the room with us, we will respond in anger because it's that same adrenaline rush that would have us snag the child by their hair so they don't run out in the street, it's going to shoot through us and propel us into an action in the face of that personal threat. And the last stressor that triggers anger, I think it's the biggest one, and it may well be behind the other three, is that we have a need that isn't being met. And so we'll look at that in a minute. But the basis of all these stressors is the emotion of fear, no doubt about it. Whenever we experience any kind of fear, our brain interprets it as a stress. And so then it attaches a thought to it like, I'm not safe here, or I never get to finish my sentence, which if you grow up with a house full of girls, that's very well true. Or, oh, that stoplight is red. And so our brain attached that to the feeling of fear. And even though we might not hear the thought, our brain does. And that triggers a biological response that includes anger that will defend us from that fear. Our dukes go up, or we hit the brakes, or we run. Distilled into its probably simplest form, anger is nothing but energy that is stirred in our bodies. That's it. It's a biological response to a thought that our brain connected to some kind of stress. But what do we do with that energy when one of our highest values is peace? If you're one of those people like me who suppresses anger by pushing it inward, not saying anything, we are going to pay the price with a physical ailment probably that hints at the blocked energy we've stored in our bodies. Ailments like migraines, ulcers, depression, diabetes, depression, hypertension. There's even a word for that kind of anger and that's enraged, if you think about it. I'm enraged. It's as if we're hitting the gas pedal and the brake pedal at the same time. And instead of acting on the fight, flight, or freeze energy that anger is asking for, we're holding it all in. As the Buddha said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. So swallowing our anger hurts ourselves most of all. And I would love to say this message at the Methodist Church that says, swallowing your anger is better. It's like, oh, no, it's not. But then the flip side of anger, I'm sure we've all experienced, is anger, or anger in, is the response of anger out. When I think of anger out, I get the image of the fiery character in the movie Inside Out, where he was anger personified. I think of Jesus tossing the tables of the money changers in the temple. This act of Jesus has always been really puzzling to me, especially when you consider his ministry was woven with adages and wisdom of turn the other cheek, give them your coat and your shirt. Very peaceful ways of dealing with anger. And some would say he was rightly justified in his anger about how the sacred traditions of the Hebrew people had become so commercialized and financially inaccessible to many. You couldn't be forgiven if you didn't have money to buy the prescribed sacrifices or to pay for the required ritual baths before you could even enter the temple. And so he got outraged. I'm sure the biological response in Jesus was the same that we get when we feel outraged. Not only did he turn over the tables and throw things, he made a whip and was chasing people and animals with it. On the other hand, chronic outrage, not the rare outrage like we see with Jesus, this leads to ailments like insomnia or chemical addiction. It is medically considered a key predictor of heart disease, is chronic outrage. In our relationships, sweeping anger under the rug by ignoring it or numbing out to it only leads to protracted miscommunications. You often can't hear what the other person's saying because you're still listening to the anger. It leads to grudges, like the Hatfields and the McCoys was over a couple of pigs, but nobody remembered that. It also leads to bitterness. That kind of anger doesn't really go away. It just lingers right out of sight. And on the other hand, anger that is chronically aggressive leads to hostility and cynicism in relationships. It leads to abuse and chaos. So how do we get to the heart of the matter when we peaceful folks feel anger? How do we face the energy that stirs within us in anger and transform it into something that's compassionate and productive? I used to say, what good is old anger? It's just not productive. Anger presents itself to us to say something is wrong here. And it's up to us to listen beneath the surface of that energy of anger to find out what really is wrong. It takes spiritual courage, and I would have to say spiritual fortitude, to see anger as a growing edge and to sit with it long enough to find out what it's telling us. So when the heat of anger begins to course through our bodies, we get physical signs of it. Like you might feel maybe your palms sweat or your heart rate goes up. You might feel flush or clench your fist or tighten your stomach. I remember as a young full-time worker, the hackles on my neck going up for the first time. Like, oh, I'm pretty mad. Now what? But we're going to get some kind of physical cue of that energy that's on the increase. So I like to imagine that I'm going to sit in the fire of that energy rather than to act on it. Instead of reacting or responding, just try seeing that anger as an increase in energy. So turned up the thermostat. And as you stay centered and calm, let that energy move through your body. Don't stop it in your jaw or in your throat. Don't let it tighten your fists or your diaphragm. And next, it helps to name out loud just what you're experiencing in your body, nothing else. Even if you're in the middle of a situation that has you feeling angry, it helps to press the pause button in the conversation and just say, I'm noticing my desire to defend myself. I'm noticing my jaw clenching. There's no need to act on it or to explain it. Just simply notice it and name it. Even if you just say it out loud to yourself. And all this at the same time, the I am that you are, that you is going to stay centered and calm and observant of what's going on. So in the pause between the inner and the outer, sitting with the fire of inner feelings and sensations before taking outward action, we have the opportunity to connect with our own wisdom. Pausing allows us enough time to connect with whatever need we have that isn't being met. For some people that comes easily. They can quickly name what ails them. But if you are like me, I grew up disconnected from my own feelings and needs. Why? No, naming what I need in a heated moment especially has taken me decades, and I kid you not, decades to accomplish, and I'm still kind of got training wheels on the process. I've learned over these years it's totally okay to end a conversation right at the place of pause. I had this look I would just give my daughter when she was a teenager that would say, time out, everybody to their own corners or to their own rooms. I might even say, I find myself clenching my jaw, so this is really important to me. Do you mind if I have a chance to gather my thoughts and I'll get back to you? End of conversation. And I've also learned some awesome language for getting back to a situation that might have had me seething earlier. Because it'd be easy just to walk away and never go back to it. This may sound formulaic to you, and it is, but believe me, it works. My kids use it on me even now. Even if it just means it's giving you a framework for answering the question, where is this anger coming from within me? So here's the formula, and it's 4 fill in the blank phrases that you actually say to the other person. So you fill in the blanks. When you blank, I feel blank, and I need to feel blank. So would you be willing to blank? So with all those blanks, here's an example, and I use this often. Sweetheart, when you push me for a quick answer, I feel overwhelmed, and I need to feel like I have time to think through your questions. Would you be willing to give me another minute or two to consider what you just asked me? No anger, no blame, no judgment, no you. But it's when I feel this, when you do this, I feel this, and I need to feel something else. So would you be willing to? It took me a lot of journaling over the years to figure out what it was I needed to ask for. I would have to go and it's like, what is it I need here? Was my journaling prompt for years because I couldn't answer what do I need versus what I'm getting. And when there was time to reflect on the deeper root experience that would lead to whatever I was feeling, I would ask myself, where is this anger coming from within me? And that would help me dig out down to the cause of why these situations keep repeating themselves in my life, so I could heal that. Once I got accustomed to using this technique to explore and to express my frustrated feelings, I'm becoming more adept at using it in real time. And that's what I've been doing for the past 2 months or so. I've been venting my spleen, as Tracy would say. But, my family and my friends have suffered through some turbulence as I'm still learning this. It hasn't gone smoothly over the past 20 years. But they don't seem any worse for having weathered those storms with me, knowing that I didn't learn it as a kid. I'm trying to relearn it as an adult. I've been able, and I have to say, as I've been able to really be clear about my needs and my boundaries, and this is really recent, My chronically elevated hypertension is now falling within normal ranges. Is that not? It's like that's a fluke the first time. The second time, the third time, it's like, oh my goodness, this is working. It's amazing. So it's simple. When you blank, I feel blank. And I need to feel. So would you be willing to? So here's the bottom line to me. Thriving in this topsy-turvy world, a world that's even more and more topsy and turvy as time goes on. That requires wisdom that comes only from self-awareness and self-reflection. That is like the gold thread through life. Self-awareness, self-reflection. Learning to listen to our anger and to determine what its message might be. Asking what is buried beneath it to unearth and heal our original wounds. And expressing ourselves honestly and clearly without judgment or blame can only serve to disarm the contentions that exist in our relationships, in our communities, around the world, and as James said, even within our own spirits. Sitting in the fire of anger and then acting out of calm and clarity will move us from being peacekeepers that just smile in silent rage to peacemakers. And so it is. Amen.
Amen.